Hey guys, you're watching Matt the Musketeer, and today I have another catch-up commentary for you. But before we jump into the subject of today's video, I thought I'd just go ahead and explain the gameplay for you. Now, as you can probably already tell, this is a game of Conquest on Grand Bazaar, and it had about 700 or 800 tickets, so it was quite a long game, but it was very, very enjoyable. As you can see here, I was running around with the M249 saw, and I was pretty much just kicking the shit out of people. I was kicking their shit right in. At first I was using the M249, and then I eventually swapped out to the Recon class, so I could put my spawn beacons down and get behind people a little bit and pretty much ruin their day just that little bit more. So I hope you guys enjoy the gameplay. Now, the subject of today's video is one that I want you guys to discuss with me in the comment section. I want you to leave your thoughts and leave your opinions on this, and it is to do with the future of video game retail. Now, the reason I'm bringing this subject up is, of course, with the recent collapse of HMV, which is a shop in the UK, for any of you guys who don't know, kind of like a multimedia store that sold DVDs, CDs, Blu-rays, video games, all that kind of stuff. That went into administration recently. Just before Christmas, there was a collapse of the shop game. That is now open again, but for how long for and how long it can make a profit for again is, very questionable. So today I want to discuss with you guys where you think the future of video game retail is going, and whether or not it's a good thing for buyers like ourselves, consumers, or whether it's just going to play into the hands of the people who produce and retail the games. Now, of course, for a long time now, there's been the slow dying death of the high street retail store, like things like HMV and Game, as I previously mentioned, partly which is due to their own fault for not competing with online prices, but also because they can't compete with the easiness and readily availableness of the internet to provide us with games that we can buy instantly at the click of a button. Now, when I see these video game stores closing down, of course it is a little bit sad to see all these people losing their jobs, and it is a shame to lose a video game store from the high street. It's always nice to have a little nosy round a video game store when you haven't got much else to do. But at the same time, I don't feel much pity for them. Every time I go in a video game store, they're always selling all video games at full top shelf prices, no matter how long it's been out. They're always overly expensive. And not only that, sometimes I think these video game stores are very much out of touch with their consumers with what kind of products they're selling. For example, Game only just very recently started selling things like Turtle Beach headsets and surround sound headsets and gaming mice for computers. So sometimes I do think they're very much out of touch with what the real gaming community actually want to see within their video game stores. But what effect do the closure of these video game stores have on people like you and me? Well, one of the largest things I think it'll have an effect on, it'll put a really big dent in second-hand pre-owned games. Now, there is a big debate whether the buying and selling of pre-owned games actually does damage the video game market. Now, when you buy a second-hand game, all the money that you transact for that game, none of that goes back to the developers. All the money that is given for a second-hand game goes straight to the video game store that is selling it. So when a video game is bought originally for, say, £40, a percentage of that will go back to the developers, but then when it is, resold and recirculated 2 or 3 times for maybe £20 each time, all of that money is just profit for the video game store, so it actually reduces the amount of profit that the developers make. Now, of course, as much as we all want to get a good deal on our video games, there is a kind of an even balance between you want to get a good deal on your own video games, but at the same time you don't want to be ripping off the game developers, because of course we all love video games and want the video game market to thrive. But that said, in the future there is a more grim outlook for consumers like you and me. The next stage in video game retail is complete downloads, where you'll no longer receive a hard copy of the game at all, and you'll only ever be able to download digital copies. Now, of course, this is just speculation, but a move like that could have quite grim consequences for consumers like you and me. Now, if video game retail did move across to complete digital download, whilst there still could be a very healthy marketplace and a very competitive marketplace with things like Amazon and Play.com and any other online website selling the video game downloads for the most competitive and lowest price that you can get your hands on, there still is the very realistic chance that things like Origin, where companies like EA run their own distribution websites, could turn around and say, we are the only people now who have the rights to retail and distribute this game, which means then they can completely monopolise the price at which they're selling their games. With more and more video games now having online product codes that you have to register with the game producers to be able to use that game, not only for the single player but for the multiplayer as well, it is very realistic that in the future someone like EA, for example, could turn around and say, we are the only people allowed to distribute this game, which then means they can completely dominate the prices. They can make the game £50, £60, £70, and you can't dispute that price because there is nowhere else you can buy the game, allowing them to completely monopolise the prices of their video games. And maybe this idea is actually closer than we think. If you think back into the past when PlayStation 3 first came out, you could play on games like Call of Duty and other games online without having to register for anything. But now, for example, if you want to play Battlefield 3 online on PC, you have to have an EA account, you have to log onto their EA Battle Log website, you have to go through all of their servers. So already it's starting to turn in their favour, and already anytime you want to get on their games and use their games, it has to be done on their terms. So could the future of total digital download actually put us, the consumer, in a position where we have no choice and opinion on where and whereabouts we get our video games from? Which could fatally put us in a position where if you want to play video games at all, you've got to fork out the top shelf prices. Now, on the bright side for the consumer, there are actually laws in place that stop companies from monopolising the market and having a complete monopolisation of any product. But whether or not this would actually apply internationally for an online product which is a digital download which they themselves created is another thing. So at the moment it's still a very questionable subject. So in the comment section below, guys, I want to hear from you guys. I want you to tell me what you think on the situation and give me your thoughts and opinions. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up. It does help me out a lot. But before I go, I just have enough time to give away this week's winner of the game code, and this week's game is Borderlands 2. And once again, I picked the subscriber at random from my subscription list, as I did with the previous video, and this week's winner is a subscriber called Zontre. So if you are Zontre, I have messaged you your Borderlands 2 product code, so I hope you enjoy that. Stay tuned, guys, there'll be more giveaways coming in the next few videos.